This morning, the Princess of Wales back on the global stage. Kate's first international trip since her cancer recovery, stepping out on her own, a research trip of sorts, learning about a cause she cares deeply about.
Thousands of people have packed the square. People are hanging out the windows, and you can see her right here, meeting some of her littlest fans.
For years, the royal family guarded countless secrets behind locked doors and sealed archives. But everything changed when Princess Anne reportedly uncovered a hidden message left behind by the late Queen, a message so unexpected that it threatened to reshape the future of royal power itself. What began as a quiet discovery soon ignited a chain reaction of whispers, private meetings, and shocking estate transfers that nobody outside palace walls was supposed to know about. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The discovery was said to have happened during what should have been a routine review of the Queen's private records. For decades, certain documents had remained untouched, preserved not because they lacked importance, but because they were considered too personal, too sensitive, and perhaps too powerful to be examined without extraordinary reason. Yet somewhere among those forgotten papers, Princess Anne reportedly found something that immediately changed the atmosphere inside royal circles. What appeared at first to be an ordinary message quickly revealed itself to be something far more significant. Those who allegedly became aware of its contents were said to have reacted with disbelief, not because the message was difficult to understand, but because of the name that appeared within it. That name was Catherine. For years, Catherine had earned admiration through patience, loyalty, and an almost unwavering commitment to duty. She had become one of the monarchy's most trusted figures. Yet even her strongest supporters reportedly never expected her name to appear in connection with matters of royal estates and long-term inheritance strategies. According to growing whispers, the Queen's hidden message contained guidance concerning valuable royal properties, estates whose significance extended far beyond wealth. These were symbols of influence, stability, and future authority. The possibility that Catherine had been quietly connected to them sent shockwaves through palace corridors. As word spread among a select group of senior advisors, confidential discussions reportedly began almost immediately. Meetings were arranged behind closed doors. Long-standing assumptions were questioned. Individuals who had spent years studying royal tradition suddenly found themselves facing a development nobody had anticipated. Some reportedly believed the message represented one of the Queen's final attempts to protect the monarchy's future. Others wondered whether it revealed a private vision she had carefully concealed from almost everyone around her. What made the situation even more intriguing was the secrecy itself. Why had the Queen chosen to hide such a message? Why leave instructions that would only emerge years later? Those questions quickly became as important as the message itself. The deeper advisors looked, the more they began to suspect that this was not a spontaneous decision. Instead, it appeared to be part of a carefully considered plan that had been developing quietly behind the scenes for years. Reports soon suggested that Prince William was informed before many other members of the family. His reaction, according to palace whispers, was not one of surprise, but of deep reflection. Some believed he immediately understood the broader implications. Others claimed he recognized connections between the message and conversations that had taken place long before the Queen's passing. Whatever the truth, speculation intensified rapidly. Rumors began spreading that enormous royal assets could eventually change hands, potentially altering the balance of influence within the monarchy itself. And as those rumors grew louder, one unavoidable question began haunting everyone connected to the story. If the Queen had truly intended for Catherine to play such an extraordinary role in the future, then what exactly had she written in that hidden message, and why had she waited so long for it to be found? But while the discovery itself was shocking, the real mystery was why the Queen chose to hide the message for so many years. The hidden message was not merely a personal note. According to growing palace whispers, it carried a deeper purpose, one tied directly to the future stability of the monarchy. As advisors studied every word, an extraordinary possibility emerged. Perhaps the Queen had spent years quietly preparing Catherine for a role far greater than anyone publicly understood. As the initial shock began to settle, a more complicated question emerged inside royal circles. What exactly was the Queen trying to say? Those who reportedly reviewed the message found themselves returning to it again and again, searching for meanings hidden between carefully chosen words. It was not described as a straightforward instruction. Instead, it allegedly carried the tone of a final reflection, a statement of trust, and perhaps even a warning about the future. The language reportedly focused on duty, continuity, and stewardship concepts that had defined the Queen's reign for decades. Yet the more advisors analyzed those themes, the more one conclusion seemed impossible to ignore. The message was not simply discussing property, it was discussing responsibility. That realization transformed the conversation entirely. Suddenly, Catherine's name was no longer being linked merely to estates or inheritance. Instead, she appeared to be connected to something much larger, a long-term vision for preserving stability during a period of profound change. For years, Catherine had been viewed as one of the monarchy's most dependable figures, admired for her composure under pressure and her ability to navigate public expectations without creating controversy. But now palace insiders reportedly began revisiting old assumptions. What if the Queen had seen something more? What if years of quiet trust had actually been part of a much bigger strategy? Those questions sparked a wave of reflection among individuals who had worked closely around the royal household. Conversations that once seemed ordinary suddenly acquired new significance. Private discussions, unexpected invitations, responsibilities that appeared minor at the time. Many reportedly began connecting dots that had never been connected before. Looking backward through the lens of the hidden message, a different picture started to emerge. It was as though fragments scattered across many years were slowly forming a single story. At the center of that story stood Princess Anne. More than anyone else, she reportedly became the key figure in interpreting the Queen's intentions. Her understanding of royal tradition, combined with her reputation for loyalty and discretion, gave her unusual credibility during a period filled with uncertainty. While others debated possibilities, Anne was said to focus on understanding the deeper meaning behind the Queen's words. According to Palace Whispers, she repeatedly emphasized that the message was not about privilege, it was about continuity. It was about ensuring that the monarchy remained anchored during future storms. As speculation intensified, comparisons to previous royal transitions inevitably surfaced. Historians within royal circles reportedly examined earlier moments when monarchs had quietly prepared trusted successors long before the public realized what was happening. The parallels were difficult to ignore. Again and again, patterns appeared that suggested careful planning rather than coincidence. That possibility only fueled growing rumors that secret preparations may have already been underway for years. Soon, attention shifted toward another sensitive question. If the Queen had been quietly preparing Catherine for greater responsibilities, then what practical form would those responsibilities take? Advisors, aides, and insiders increasingly found themselves discussing succession not only in terms of titles, but in terms of influence, stewardship, and control over key royal assets. The hidden message had opened a door that could no longer be closed. And as debate surrounding its meaning continued to grow, another revelation began drawing attention away from the message itself. Because hidden within the discussions was talk of something even more astonishing, a collection of royal estates whose importance could change everything. Yet understanding the message was only the beginning, because attention soon shifted to the astonishing list of estates connected to it. As details slowly emerged, even seasoned royal observers struggled to comprehend the scale of what was being discussed. These were not symbolic gifts or ceremonial privileges. They were powerful royal estates, historic properties, and strategic holdings tied to centuries of royal influence. If the rumors were true, Catherine was about to become one of the most significant figures in the monarchy's future. The conversation surrounding the Queen's hidden message changed dramatically, the moment attention shifted from its meaning to the assets allegedly connected to it. Until then, Much of the discussion had focused on symbolism, trust, and succession. But now, a far more tangible reality began to take shape. Reports circulating within royal circles suggested that several important estates had been quietly referenced within the Queen's final instructions. These were not ordinary properties. They represented generations of royal history, vast resources, and enduring influence. Their significance stretched far beyond financial value. They were deeply woven into the identity of the monarchy itself. As advisors examined the implications, a sense of disbelief reportedly spread through palace corridors. Some of these estates had long been viewed as untouchable pillars of royal authority. They were places associated with tradition, continuity, and institutional strength. For decades, assumptions about their future had remained largely unchanged. Yet the hidden message appeared to challenge those assumptions in ways few had imagined possible. Suddenly, conversations that once revolved around ceremonial responsibilities evolved into discussions about who would help shape the monarchy's future from a position of genuine influence. What made the situation particularly explosive was the symbolic weight attached to the estates themselves. Ownership was only one part of the equation. Control over these historic holdings carried prestige, responsibility, and visibility. Whoever became associated with them would inevitably be seen as a guardian of royal legacy. That reality elevated Catherine's potential role to an entirely new level. If the reports proved accurate, she would not simply inherit assets. She would inherit trust, expectation, and a connection to centuries of royal continuity. Behind closed doors, debates reportedly intensified. Advisors weighed every possible consequence. Some viewed the Queen's alleged wishes as a masterstroke designed to secure long-term stability. Others worried about how such a dramatic shift might be perceived. There were concerns about public reaction, media scrutiny, and the inevitable speculation that follows any major royal development. Questions multiplied rapidly. Why Catherine? Why now? And why had the Queen chosen to communicate her intentions through a hidden message rather than a public declaration? While those debates continued, Catherine herself reportedly remained remarkably silent. That silence became a story in its own right. There were no dramatic responses, no attempts to influence the narrative, and no visible effort to defend or explain the growing rumors. Instead, she allowed the discussion to unfold around her. Some interpreted that restraint as confidence. Others believed it reflected a deep understanding of royal responsibility. Whatever the reason, her refusal to engage publicly only fueled curiosity and strengthened the perception that something extraordinary was happening behind the scenes. Prince William reportedly recognized the significance of the moment almost immediately. According to palace whispers, he understood that the estates represented more than wealth or prestige. They were instruments of continuity, capable of shaping the monarchy's future for generations. The implications extended far beyond the present. If Catherine became linked to these holdings, it would signal a profound shift in how royal influence might be distributed in the years ahead. As discussions expanded, another startling realization began to emerge. The more investigators examined the Queen's alleged instructions, the harder it became to believe that these decisions had been made suddenly. Too many pieces seemed to fit together. Too many past events appeared connected. Too many overlooked details suddenly carried new meaning. What first appeared to be a shocking revelation was beginning to resemble the final stage of a carefully orchestrated plan. And that realization opened an even bigger mystery. Because if the Queen had truly intended for Catherine to become connected to such powerful estates, then evidence of that intention might have existed long before the hidden message was ever discovered. But the deeper investigators looked into the Queen's final wishes, the more they uncovered signs that this plan may have been years in the making. Suddenly, moments once dismissed as ordinary began taking on an entirely different meaning. Private meetings, exclusive invitations, special responsibilities. Looking back, many insiders started wondering whether the Queen had been quietly shaping Catherine's future long before anyone realized what was happening. The deeper palace insiders examined the hidden message and the estates connected to it, the more they found themselves looking backward rather than forward. What had initially appeared to be a surprising revelation was now beginning to feel like the final chapter of a story that had been unfolding for years. Conversations once forgotten were being remembered. Decisions once considered routine were being reevaluated. And at the center of every new discovery stood the evolving relationship between Catherine and the Queen. For much of her royal journey, Catherine had been viewed as a figure defined by patience. She rarely sought attention, rarely entered controversy, and rarely stepped outside the carefully measured expectations placed upon her. Yet behind that calm public image, whispers began to emerge that the Queen had placed extraordinary confidence in her long before the rest of the world recognized it. Those closest to royal operations reportedly started noticing a pattern. Again and again, Catherine had been entrusted with responsibilities that seemed unusually significant for someone whose influence was still quietly developing. At first, those moments attracted little attention. A private discussion here, a special invitation there, an opportunity to represent important royal interests when others were unavailable. None of it appeared dramatic on its own, but when viewed together through the lens of the hidden message, those seemingly isolated events began forming a much larger picture. Some insiders reportedly concluded that the Queen had not merely admired Catherine, she had been actively preparing her. That possibility sent a wave of emotion through royal circles. For supporters of Catherine, it was viewed as the ultimate sign of trust. For others, it raised uncomfortable questions. Why had the Queen chosen her so carefully? What qualities had she seen that convinced her Catherine could shoulder such immense responsibility? The answers remained elusive, but the speculation grew stronger with every passing day. Princess Anne reportedly played a crucial role in connecting these pieces. While others focused on the estates themselves, Anne was said to be studying the broader pattern. She remembered conversations. She remembered moments that had seemed insignificant at the time. Most importantly, she reportedly recognized something that others had overlooked. The Queen's confidence in Catherine had not appeared suddenly near the end of her life. It had been building steadily for years, hidden beneath ordinary royal routines that few people questioned. Comparisons inevitably emerged between Catherine and other members of the royal family. Some observers noted that while others commanded headlines through dramatic events and public battles, Catherine's influence appeared to have grown through consistency, restraint, and trust. It was a different path to power, one built not on visibility, but on reliability. That distinction became increasingly important as the implications of the hidden message continued to unfold. The more palace staff revisited past events, the more they began suspecting that succession planning had extended far beyond titles and ceremonial positions. According to growing whispers, the Queen may have been thinking about stewardship, continuity, and long-term stability in ways that were never publicly discussed. If true, it meant Catherine's future role had been quietly expanding long before anyone outside a small inner circle became aware of it. Yet there was something almost unsettling about how naturally Catherine appeared to fit into this emerging narrative. Despite the growing attention, she remained composed. Despite the rumors, she remained silent. And despite the enormous implications of the Queen's hidden wishes, she continued presenting the same calm image the public had known for years. That contrast only deepened the mystery and intensified speculation about what might happen next. Because as evidence of the Queen's long-term planning continued to surface, the atmosphere inside royal circles began to change. Admiration was growing in some quarters, but so was unease in others. Not everyone welcomed the idea of Catherine's rising influence. Not everyone viewed the hidden message as a cause for celebration. And beneath the surface, tensions were beginning to build in ways that could no longer remain hidden. However, as Catherine's role expanded in the shadows, not everyone inside the royal circle was pleased with what they were hearing. The revelation reportedly triggered a wave of tension behind palace walls. Loyal allies, longtime insiders, and influential family figures suddenly found themselves confronting an uncomfortable reality. If Catherine truly stood at the center of the Queen's hidden vision, The balance of influence inside the monarchy could change forever. What had begun as a quiet discovery was now evolving into something far more disruptive. The hidden message was no longer being discussed as a private matter, connected to the Queen's final wishes. It had become a catalyst for division, uncertainty, and growing confrontation within the royal institution. As whispers about Catherine's potential future role spread through palace circles, people who had once stood comfortably on common ground suddenly found themselves taking sides. The heart of the conflict was not necessarily Catherine herself. It was what she represented. If the Queen had truly chosen to place such extraordinary trust in her, then the implications extended far beyond a handful of estates. It suggested a shift in influence. It suggested a carefully planned redistribution of responsibility. Most importantly, it suggested that the Queen's long-term vision for the monarchy may have differed from what many insiders had assumed for years. According to palace whispers, distinct factions gradually began emerging behind the scenes. Some believed the Queen's wishes should be respected without hesitation. They argued that her judgment had guided the monarchy through decades of challenge and change, making her final decisions worthy of absolute trust. Others were reportedly more cautious. They questioned the consequences of moving forward with a plan that could alter established expectations and potentially reshape internal power structures. Their concerns were not always rooted in opposition. In many cases, they stemmed from uncertainty about what the future might look like if Catherine's influence expanded as dramatically as the hidden message appeared to suggest. The debates reportedly became increasingly intense. Advisors examined every possible outcome. Some worried about public reaction. Others focused on institutional stability. There were questions about precedent, questions about perception, and questions about whether such a significant transition could occur without creating lasting tensions. The further discussions progressed, the clearer it became that the monarchy was facing one of its most delicate internal challenges in years. Family members were also said to have reacted with varying degrees of surprise. For some, the reports surrounding the Queen's intentions seemed almost impossible to believe at first. For others, the revelations suddenly explained years of subtle decisions and private interactions that had never fully made sense. Every new detail appeared to deepen the mystery while simultaneously increasing the stakes. Throughout this period, Princess Anne reportedly remained unwavering. While others debated possibilities, she was said to focus on one principle above all else: honoring the Queen's wishes. Those close to the situation described Anne as a stabilizing force during an increasingly turbulent period. Her confidence reportedly came not from speculation but from her conviction that she understood the deeper purpose behind the hidden message. That determination earned admiration from some and frustration from others, but it never appeared to weaken. Prince William was also said to quietly support the process. Unlike many of the voices surrounding him, he reportedly avoided public displays or dramatic interventions. Instead, palace whispers suggested he viewed the unfolding situation through a longer lens. He understood that the discussion was not merely about property. It was about continuity, legacy, and preparing for the future. His calm approach reportedly contrasted sharply with the growing anxiety elsewhere within royal circles. Meanwhile, Catherine continued to remain silent. That silence became increasingly powerful. As arguments intensified around her, she offered no public response, no defense, and no attempt to influence opinion. Her restraint only added to the perception that larger forces were already in motion. Supporters saw dignity, critics saw mystery. Everyone saw significance. As tensions continued building, the atmosphere inside palace walls reportedly became heavier with each passing day. Old assumptions were crumbling. New alliances were forming. Resistance was growing. Yet, despite the opposition, one crucial reality remained unchanged. Princess Anne held something that gave her extraordinary confidence in defending the Queen's vision. Something that could potentially silence even the strongest critics. Yet, even amid the growing resistance, Anne possessed something that made opposing the plan nearly impossible. Just when doubts threatened to overwhelm the story, Anne reportedly revealed additional evidence connected to the Queen's hidden message. What emerged next transformed private speculation into something far more powerful. Suddenly, people who had questioned the discovery found themselves facing details they could no longer easily dismiss. For weeks, uncertainty had fueled the growing debate. Supporters believed the Queen's hidden message represented a carefully crafted vision for the future, while critics argued that too many questions remained unanswered. The monarchy appeared trapped between competing interpretations, with neither side fully able to prove its position. Then, everything changed. According to Palace Whispers, Princess Anne uncovered additional materials that dramatically altered the conversation and shifted the balance of belief almost overnight. The discovery reportedly did not consist of a single document. Instead, it involved a collection of supporting records, private notes, timelines, and references that appeared to strengthen the credibility of the Queen's original message. What made these materials so explosive was not their existence alone, but how neatly they connected pieces that had previously seemed unrelated. Suddenly, events that once appeared coincidental began fitting into a coherent pattern. Questions that had fueled skepticism started receiving answers. The hidden message was no longer standing on its own. As advisors reviewed the newly surfaced materials, many reportedly found themselves revisiting conclusions they had reached only days earlier. Claims that had once been disputed now appeared far more difficult to challenge. Timelines aligned. Conversations previously dismissed as insignificant gained new meaning. Decisions made years before the Queen's passing suddenly looked less like isolated moments and more like deliberate steps in a carefully managed process. The deeper investigators looked, the harder it became to dismiss the possibility that the Queen had indeed been working toward a specific outcome for a very long time. The impact inside palace circles was immediate. Confidence in the authenticity and significance of the hidden message reportedly grew stronger with each review. Advisors who had remained cautious became increasingly convinced that the Queen's intentions had been consistent across multiple years. More importantly, the evidence appeared to place those intentions within a broader historical framework. According to insiders, comparisons were drawn to previous moments in royal history when monarchs quietly prepared trusted figures for important responsibilities away from public scrutiny. Those historical parallels did not prove the Queen's plan, but they gave it context and legitimacy that many found compelling. As confidence increased, opposition reportedly began losing momentum. The arguments did not disappear completely, but their strength weakened noticeably. Critics who had once demanded proof now faced a growing body of material that seemed difficult to explain away. The atmosphere shifted from confrontation to reluctant acceptance. Questions still existed, but the focus of those questions was beginning to change. Instead of asking whether the Queen had intended this outcome, more people were now asking what would happen next. Throughout this dramatic period, Catherine remained remarkably composed. While attention around her intensified and speculation reached unprecedented levels, she reportedly maintained the same measured approach that had defined her public image for years. That calmness stood in sharp contrast to the storm unfolding around her. Some interpreted it as discipline, others believed it reflected confidence, in a process already moving toward its inevitable conclusion. Whatever the explanation, her silence continued to command attention. The growing acceptance of the Queen's wishes created a powerful new reality. Discussions were no longer centered solely on discovery or interpretation. Momentum was shifting toward implementation. Advisors began focusing on practical implications. Conversations became less about whether changes would occur and more about how they would unfold. The hidden message had survived scrutiny. The supporting evidence had strengthened its foundation, and the resistance that once threatened to stop everything was gradually losing its influence. Yet, beneath all the revelations, one astonishing truth remained. The evidence did more than validate the Queen's intentions. It revealed the extraordinary scale of her confidence in Catherine, and that realization carried implications far greater than anyone had initially imagined. But the greatest surprise was not what Anne revealed, it was what those revelations meant for Catherine's future position within the monarchy. What started as a forgotten message had evolved into one of the most consequential royal developments in years. With major estates now linked to her future, Catherine's influence appeared to expand far beyond ceremonial appearances. The woman once viewed as a supportive royal spouse was increasingly being seen as a cornerstone of the monarchy's next chapter. By this stage, the conversation had moved beyond speculation. The hidden message had survived scrutiny. The supporting evidence had strengthened its credibility. The resistance that once threatened to halt the process was losing ground. What remained was the growing realization that Catherine's position within the monarchy was changing in ways few could have imagined when the story first emerged. The discovery that had begun as a mystery buried within the Queen's private records was now transforming into a defining moment for the future of the royal institution. For years, Catherine had occupied a role that many people viewed through a familiar lens. She was admired, respected, and trusted, but often discussed in relation to the responsibilities of others. That perception was now beginning to shift dramatically. The revelations surrounding the Queen's hidden wishes placed Catherine at the center of a much larger narrative. She was no longer being viewed simply as a supportive figure standing beside the future king. Increasingly, she was being recognized as a vital force in the monarchy's long-term stability and direction. The estates linked to the Queen's vision played a crucial role in that transformation. Their significance extended far beyond wealth. They represented continuity, influence, and stewardship. Control over such holdings carried enormous responsibility, but it also carried the power to shape future generations of royal leadership. According to Palace Whispers, the Queen had understood that reality better than anyone. By connecting Catherine to these assets, she may have been doing far more than rewarding loyalty. She may have been reinforcing the foundations of the monarchy's future. That possibility gradually altered how many senior figures viewed Catherine's role. Confidence in her abilities reportedly grew stronger among influential advisors and trusted members of royal circles. The hidden message and the evidence supporting it painted a picture of someone who had earned extraordinary trust over many years. Rather than being a sudden beneficiary of unexpected circumstances, Catherine increasingly appeared to be the result of a carefully developed plan. Every new detail seemed to reinforce the same conclusion. The Queen had seen something in her that she believed was essential for the monarchy's future. Public perception also began to evolve. While debates continued behind closed doors, whispers escaping into wider circles created a new understanding of Catherine's importance. Many people who had once viewed her role through a narrow lens now saw her as a central figure in the institution's next era. The contrast was striking. The same qualities that had sometimes been mistaken for quietness or caution were now being interpreted as strength, discipline, and long-term leadership. At the same time, the partnership between William and Catherine appeared stronger than ever. Throughout the unfolding controversy, they reportedly approached the situation with remarkable unity. Neither sought dramatic confrontation. Neither appeared interested in fueling division. Instead, they remained focused on responsibility and continuity. That approach only strengthened the perception that they represented the future the Queen had envisioned. Together, they increasingly looked less like heirs waiting for their moment and more like leaders already preparing for it. As the Queen's intentions became clearer, so too did the responsibilities attached to them. Greater influence brought greater expectations. Greater trust brought greater scrutiny. The estates were not simply symbols of status. They represented obligations that could shape the monarchy's future for decades. Catherine's growing prominence was accompanied by the weight of those expectations, and there was no guarantee that the path ahead would be easy. Yet despite the challenges, momentum continued building. The monarchy's future appeared increasingly tied to Catherine's role within it. What had once seemed impossible now felt inevitable. The Queen's long-term vision was coming into focus, piece by piece, revealing a future in which Catherine occupied a far more significant position than anyone had originally anticipated. And yet, Even as the answers multiplied, one mystery remained stubbornly unresolved. It was a question that lingered over every revelation, every estate, and every decision. Because if the Queen had truly believed so strongly in this future, why had she chosen to conceal it for so long? Yet one final question continued haunting everyone involved. Why did the Queen choose secrecy instead of revealing her wishes openly? In the end, the hidden message became about far more than land, wealth, or royal property. It became a story about trust, legacy, and a queen's final attempt to shape the future after she was gone. As Catherine quietly stepped into a position few ever expected, the monarchy found itself confronting a future that had apparently been planned long before anyone realized. As the dust began to settle, the true significance of the story finally came into focus. For months, attention had been drawn toward estates, inheritance, influence, and the political consequences of the Queen's hidden wishes. Yet beneath all those dramatic revelations was something far more powerful. At its heart, this was never simply a story about property. It was a story about faith. It was a story about a monarch who spent a lifetime safeguarding an institution, and who may have chosen her final moves with extraordinary care. Every document, every hidden instruction, every quiet decision now seemed connected to a single purpose: protecting the monarchy's future long after her own chapter had ended. The deeper people reflected on the Queen's strategy, the more understandable her secrecy began to appear. For years, questions had surrounded why such important intentions were never publicly revealed. Why remain silent? Why conceal a plan of such enormous significance? According to those who supported her approach, the answer may have been remarkably simple. Public declarations create conflict. Hidden preparation creates stability. By keeping her intentions private, the Queen may have ensured that her vision would be judged on its merits, rather than becoming a source of immediate division. What once looked like secrecy for its own sake increasingly appeared to be patience with a purpose. No one played a more critical role in bringing that purpose to light than Princess Anne. Throughout the unfolding controversy, she stood as the bridge between the Queen's past intentions and the monarchy's future direction. Without Anne's persistence, the hidden message may never have emerged. Without her determination to understand the Queen's wishes, many of the supporting details may have remained buried forever. Her role transformed what could have remained a forgotten mystery into one of the most consequential royal stories in recent memory. At the same time, Catherine's rise began to look very different from the way it had first been perceived. Early discussions often focused on what she might gain, but as the story unfolded, attention shifted toward what she had earned. Years of loyalty, years of restraint, years of carefully navigating extraordinary pressures now appeared to carry new significance. The estates became more than valuable assets. They became symbols of continuity, trust, and responsibility. They represented the Queen's confidence that Catherine could help guide the institution through whatever challenges lay ahead. That realization permanently altered the conversation surrounding royal power. Influence was no longer being viewed solely through titles, ceremonies, or public appearances. Instead, it was increasingly measured through stewardship, reliability, and long-term vision. The hidden message had not merely changed perceptions of Catherine. It had changed perceptions of how leadership within the monarchy itself could be understood. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of the entire story is that the Queen's influence appears to continue long after her passing. Through a message few people knew existed, she managed to shape debates, redirect expectations, and potentially influence the monarchy's future trajectory. Even in absence, her voice continued to guide events. Even after leaving the stage, her decisions continued to shape the story. And yet, for all the answers that emerged, some mysteries remain unresolved. Palace insiders continue to wonder whether other private records may still exist. Were there additional instructions? Other hidden messages? More pieces of a larger strategy that have yet to be uncovered? Those questions linger in the background, adding one final layer of intrigue to a story already filled with unexpected twists. What began as a forgotten document became a revelation. What began as a whisper became a transformation. And what began as a hidden message became a lasting reminder that the most powerful decisions are sometimes the ones made in silence. And if one hidden message could reshape the future of the monarchy, many now wonder what other royal secrets may still be waiting to be discovered behind palace walls. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.